They're like, well, can I be, can I become here I run a farm, can I become a Buddhist? Well, yes, you can, but what I think the more you start discovering, the further down the Buddhist path you go, it's why those things. It's not that they're forbidden, but they will inherently create some other problems within your life. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So it's not there's a yes you can and no you can't. It's more of, well, once you understand why those would cause you suffering, why right livelihood helps relieve your suffering, and why those types of jobs will have the potential to create a lot more problems than they end up solving.
Yeah, that is so. Again, this is
it's not so much a can and can't, it's more of you understand why and why not.
Yeah. So how about Sam? What do you think about being soldier? Can Buddhists be soldier? What do you think?
We've talked about it before, and I've also read about it before. And to be honest, I still get confused about it because Buddha is pretty strong on the first precept that we can't kill anyone, and pretty much all of it comes down to, we're not supposed to cause any harm or suffering. But it's my understanding that he does tell kings and soldiers that they can be kings and soldiers and still be lay supporters. They can't be monks, so they can still be lay Buddhists. And I honestly don't fully understand that. It's something I want to keep learning about because I can see the understanding, like how her describes, you need some amount of, secular authority like kings and soldiers to keep society running. But of course, in the Buddhist path, you can't do violence. So it's challenging for me, honestly, Ty.
Yeah. So yeah, we discussed before too, right, George? So if some of your students come up to you and ask if you can give them some advice whether they can join in military, what do you think, George?
I usually I steal a line from somebody that I know that was in the military and was a recruiter, and I always tell kids that you either use the military or the military uses you. If you go in with a goal and you know what you want to do, I have a student right now that she's doing her undergrad and then she's going to go into the military to be a doctor, and the military is going to pay for her med school basically to let her go ahead and do it. For her, I think that's an okay choice because she's choosing to do something constructive that is far away from the violent part of it as possible. And for some kids, I know it's pretty much the only option they have if they want to do anything at higher ed, because it's the only way to make a significant amount of money for school pretty quickly. But just trying to prepare them for that, and, make sure they know what they're signing up for.
Yeah. How about Kaylee? So if you have some children, they ask you whether Buddhists can be soldier, what do you think?
I think it depends on what kind of battle you're fighting. I mean, I think about Ukraine, when a lot of people just took up arms that had to and weren't official soldiers, or places where you were fighting for your own life and the life of your children. That's something different. For fighting World War II, against that whole thing, then yeah, it's great. But then majority of the time, I don't think it's right livelihood.
Well, I think one of the this is my understanding also, there's a huge component of intention.
Yes, intention.
So it's one thing if your intention is to go in the military and become some sort of sniper or just some great battle person. Or is your intention that you're trying to keep your family safe? Because you're actively trying to protect your family. I think it's good, I think those would that holds a much different karma than versus saying, I'm going into the military to become a soldier because I like shooting guns, or, versus, I'm going into the military because I think our, whatever, military needs some more peaceful leadership. So I think the biggest, or one of the biggest components of that is, intention as well.
I would agree with that. I would also say that, I mentioned before about how my dad was a medic in the Vietnam War. And while I honestly don't know if he killed anyone or not, because as a medic, it definitely wasn't his job to kill anybody. But I know he saw horrible things, and you can't really ask a soldier if they killed anyone or not. You're not supposed to. It's really rude. It messes them up. So I don't know if he killed anyone or not. I know it wasn't his job. And honestly, the same thing with my grandpa. My grandpa was in World War II, and he was a cook instead of like a regular guy who would shoot. But I mean, they were still involved, and both of them. My dad still currently, my grandpa when he was alive, whether they killed anyone or not, they still had not karma we have to speculate or guess about. Like I can see their karma. They both had PTSD from it. They both, if they heard fireworks or it messes them up.
Well, there was also the draft too, so
Yeah.
you can't.
Yeah,
So like my dad joined the military for Vietnam War because he was about to get drafted.
that's what my dad did.
My dad was sent to Germany. Yours was sent to Vietnam.
Well, he did spend some time in Germany, but he mostly was in Asia near Vietnam, but not in Vietnam. He was in like Korea and like the Philippines and stuff a lot. Yeah, but he had like a million brothers, so he knew he would get drafted because he was like right in the middle. And usually they don't draft like the youngest or the oldest son, but if there's a bunch of sons, they're gonna get you. And so he just joined and picked to be a medic because he thought that would be a better job. But I also had a person I knew, I won't go into detail about who he was, but I knew a guy who is a bit older than me, who was in the Iraq War. And what Kirsten said reminded me of it because she was like saying, like, if you're the kind of person who honestly just wants to shoot people, then of course joining the military is bad because your intent is bad. This guy honestly was like that. He was honestly kind of a psychopath. He was kind of a bad person before he joined the military, and it made him a lot worse. Whenever he was done, he had gone from being a kind of bad guy to just like a completely bananas person. So, and he did a lot of bad things, and he told me some of the bad things he did over there. When he was a soldier, he said that he used his rifle. He was getting his hair cut at a barber shop, and they tried to charge him too much. So he pulled his gun and was like, "No, you're not going to charge me," and just like stuff like that. So he was not a good dude. But it just goes to show, like Kirsten said, intention.
Ivan, how you been, Ivan?
I'm okay, Todd. How are you?
That's okay. Yeah, Anand, what do you think? We discussed before. What do you think? Can a Buddhist be a soldier? Anand?
That's a very difficult one, but I think that if I take this in a bigger kind of a wider lens of this, if the purpose of having a military force, there's a reason for why we want a military force. The intention is always to be either to protect, defend, or protect and defend. And if you protect, you got, if someone attack, if your intention is good, if you protect, meaning you got somebody attack you, you're gonna defend. Defend because of what? Defend for your security, defend for your safety of the people, and that's the role of the government. Is also have that. Now, if you look at from that perspective, every country have a military, but if you look at the UN, so from the UN, they don't go out and fight somebody, but in theory, they go out there to protect and keep peace. So in that intention from the UN, I kind of like that idea. But then from a perspective of having a military to protect, it's probably all stem from the root of evil, that we all want something. We want something from somebody. We want to control people. We want to all the greed, material, land, property, so on and so forth. All over thousands and thousands of years, we fight because we want something from somebody, and we have to defend, and then we have to attack. So it's always same from the root of all evil. That's the greed and desire and all that stuff that we're talking about. So military in general is bad. I don't think it's a good thing. But since we are living in this world that we have no control over a government, where they force you to draft, for example, so on and so forth, it's difficult to say no if you are in that country. Like, for example, when I become a U.S. citizen, the first thing they asked me was, would you defend the U.S. Constitution? I said yes. But if the U.S. asked me to draft, to come to war to defend the U.S., would you do it? Well, I had to say yes in order to become a U.S. citizen. So there's some difficult ethical dilemma that difficult to answer. But if they ask me if I come to war and become an officer and to but I would say because of the law require me, I probably say yes. But I would pick a position where I either a cook, a chef, something in that sort, a medic, to help people to keep peace more so than to actually go to hand-to-hand combat, hurt someone. That's my kind of perspective on it.
Thank you. Yeah, here's my picture. Can you see it? Yeah, I went to U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Galveston. Galveston is nearby Houston, to give a presentation about mindfulness practice there. This is just yesterday. Yes, yesterday morning. So
very nice.
Yeah. So basically, somehow there's one gentleman. He is I think second lieutenant. He graduated from West Point. He came to pick me up from my temple to that center to give the presentation. So on the way, we have a lot of conversation about many things. In one topic that we talk about again, the servicemen in the militaries and so forth. So I mentioned to him that yes, when I was young, I would like to join with the militaries, but because somehow I understand deeply about the law of karma in Buddhism, so it deferred me to join, because I don't want to harm anyone else. And that's one of the principles in Buddhism: no killing. And of course, in Vietnam, is many Buddhists, but they still join with the army, navy, and so forth. Again, we have the choice to protect our nation, our communities, our families, or get that other people to control us. But the point is that if there's no war, right? There's no fighting, so there's no need for us to become a soldier. But because somehow, like Anand mentioned, we have all kind of craving. We want to dominate all the people. We want to control all the country, and so forth, like the war going on now in Ukraine. And so of course, for common people, as we mentioned that yes, this is more logical for us to be arms to protect our country. But of course, in one way, we create good karma to protect our country, our community, our families. But on other way, somehow we have to pay for the karma whoever we shoot down, because that type of karma will revolt again in Buddhist view, not only this lifetime and the next. So that's why somehow some people they're still young, but somehow they were killed. So that's why in Buddhist view it's better to minimize the chance for us to harm others. That's in Buddhist view. Yeah, and it's not easy, especially if our countries is at war with other country. But somehow in this country, yes, we bless that this is a peaceful one. And when I talk with that gentleman, the second lieutenant officer, and he said that yeah, he ready to go anytime if they need him. So yes, that's the choice about the people. But in Buddhist view, if we don't create any kind of kill come each other, so there's no need for us to carry weapons. If we involve with that, it is a cycle. We harm others, other harm us, and this is a cycle. Right. So Ivan, we discussed about that. We discussed about is whether Buddhist can be social or not. Again, that's just the view. Right. So Jack, right? Is that Jack, right? Jake, sorry.
Jake.
Yeah. So
No,
what?
fine.
Yeah. So what do you think about serving in the military? What do you think about that?
So I have to be honest, I don't know, I don't know a ton about, all Buddhist philosophies. I guess I would tend to think of it in terms of some people just do and others just don't. And I think that, I don't know, I think that there's so much that goes into that, such as marketing, branding, whether it's of a nation, what it's like to be in the military. I know that there's a lot of psychology that really, I guess pierces through, for lack of a better explanation. And some people just kind of, it feels right. And so I think that some people do and some people don't. Me personally, I could never imagine myself putting myself into that kind of a position, but I definitely wouldn't. I don't know. I guess it's hard not to judge like the other people, like people who do and people who do kill, but there are things that I've done that I'm not proud of. Maybe not to the extent of killing necessarily, but yeah. So I don't really know. I don't really have a strong answer on that.
So Ivan, in the state of Indiana or Kentucky, do they allow people to run around?
Here, it probably carry them.
Oh, yeah.
They do or no?
Do you need to carry a firearm?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like concealed or open in both Kentucky.
Is open carry legal in every state?
No,
No.
Kentucky's peaceful carry though.
Okay.
You can carry regardless. Period. Full stop. Like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In places they allow people to carry around. Nowadays that's why it's a lot of problem. Many years ago, when they went out to, I think, Alabama, and so somehow I stopped by at the gas station and walked into That's gas station, and I saw that young man, the one that take care of that gas station, carrying the gun. I'm so surprised. Yeah. It's just when we have gun is if we cannot control our emotion, it's easy for us to harm ourselves and others. What do you think? Is that Clarissa, right? What do you think about
Yes.
can the firearms? What do you think?
What do I think about people who carry firearms?
What do you think?
Well, my brothers both have them. They've had them for a while. I grew up around them. My neighbor was the sheriff, so we learned at an early age how to be responsible and I personally don't have a problem with them. I don't have one yet. I think I work full-time in state policy, and I think the laws that we have in Kentucky, I don't agree with. I definitely think we need some more controls. Some more measures put in place to ensure that people can protect themselves, because we cannot control those who choose to take violent action against others. But I also think that we need to ensure that people can feel and be safe from those people. And so I think we need stronger protections in place to keep the public safe. And so when I see our Kentucky laws and how lax they are, it perturbs me a lot, because I don't think that it should be that way. But I think it's the intention behind the firearms and what your intention is. And I know my brothers, and if I ever got a firearm, I know that it would be for protection if needed. I probably wouldn't carry it everywhere personally, just because I don't really think that's just not me. But I think it's the intention. I think if you hunt, I think you just feel safer. I think if it's you grew up in a neighborhood where there was a lot of violence, I think it's the intention behind carrying. And I think that anyone who chooses to possess a gun, I think they should know how to use it properly. I think they should have to wait to get it. I think they should have to have, depending on the type of gun, I think they should have education and training, and I don't think you should just get it like you can go to the store and get some gun. So, but I think it's the intention behind it.
Yeah. So, Josh, you know, right? This is the pro-gun people, right? Advocates that everyone need to protect themselves by carrying guns, and they propose as even the teachers at the school may need to have to provide the firearms to the teachers. You heard about that, right, Josh?
I have lots of opinions.
What do you think? If let's say if the school provide you or require you to carry a gun around the school, take a children or student, what do you think?
So my problem with it is, I've trained firearms to be fairly proficient with them. I know how much skill that takes, and the thought process that, like, if you are in an active shooter situation, all the things you need to be thinking about that aren't the gun, that I know teachers, they don't have that. Giving them a gun is just making the situation more dangerous.
Well, and I don't understand how like, and especially that we've gotten this far in like mass shootings being a commonplace thing. How can we not already see that adding more guns you having a gun does not protect you from somebody else that has a gun? That is not protection. Now, you might be able to kill that person faster, but you're not protecting yourself, you're killing someone else. So I really don't even understand the logic of, we'll just add more guns and that will make people safer.
And here's why, is because if they take guns away, then they have to plan for other scenarios.
Right.
So I have active shooter drills in my kindergarten classroom multiple times a year, call them intruder drills. So giving me a gun is BS, sorry, Ty. And you know, the safety committee is talking about, well, you know what, for next year, we're just gonna run more scenarios of like, well, what if there's a shooter on the playground, where are you going to go? And I don't understand why these are the questions we're asking, instead of what are we doing on the outside to protect children?
How do we get
My 24-year-old kindergartner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not more guns into people's hands. Like, to me, it just, there's really not much logic behind it, and the people that argue it to the nail are the people that are honestly just so insecure about their own little thoughts and whatever, that they can't see beyond protecting myself and my situation and this and that, that their whole thing is about me, not what is the greater good for all the people. We are all living on this one planet. Right now, there's not really a way off. Like, come on.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, yeah, the year before COVID-19, I have attend a conference that talk about how to protect the worship place, and most of the church leaders, they say that they would encourage their followers to carry guns. When they ask me, I say that this for the Buddhists is out of the question. There's no way for us to contemplate, to think about the Buddhist carry gun at the temple. Yeah, there's no way. Yeah.
Let's say like you are in church and 40 of the people in there are carrying a gun, and someone comes in and opens up. Then you have 40 people in a room like that. How does that even? I don't even understand how you think that solves the problem. Because you just added more bullets flying around the room rather than.
Ty, can you still see us? It looks like our picture disappeared.
We can see
I don't know what, can you hear us? I guess you can.
I can hear you. Can you check the
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
video, please?
Oh, yeah, you saw that, yeah, better line. My family, my brother-in-law, at their church, he's at least qualified because he's in the Air Force, but my brother-in-law at my family's church actually carries a gun at church. They requested him to. Not everybody there does, but oh gosh, can the mask still see?
Probably not.
Yes.
Oh, can you still hear us? Okay. I was saying that he keeps like a pistol. He doesn't show it to everyone, but he's got a pistol at the door where people come and go. It's a bit different, definitely. But as far as I hear what everyone says about, you know, we could definitely use less of these dangerous objects around. I agree with that. I used to have a gun, but I sold it because I just didn't like it. I didn't like the idea of it. But I would say it's more than just the weapon itself. It is certainly a lot to do with like the violence that's in people's hearts and minds and in our culture. Like there's so much anger and violence in our culture that I think even if like a wizard or an alien or somebody took all the guns away, people would still probably kill each other a lot, you know, maybe not as quickly and efficiently, which is one reason why I see what people are saying that we should try to regulate them more. But I don't think that the weapons themselves are the whole problem, which is like a nuanced position, because either you're 100% pro guns or 100% against guns in a lot of people's minds, and I'm kind of in the middle.
I'm in the middle too, and I don't get after people.
Yeah.
Like the person that probably I spend the most time with on a day-to-day basis, he's very much into guns and he carries a weapon, but he goes into these situations where he helps at risk kids, so he's going into like some really pretty serious situations, trying to de-escalate, he does some counseling with at risk youth. So when he comes over to my house, yes, he pulls off his gun and lays it down in my house. Now, do I make a big deal about it? No, and it is his, despite my feeling it is his choice. So I'm in the middle too, but I really don't and I understand, like, I've worked on farms where you've had to shoot. I mean, I haven't shot predators, but you do sometimes have to shoot predators, or you have a large animal go down and you can't get a vet out really quickly. Sometimes you have, so there are very legitimate reasons for having guns, but unfortunately, we have too much anger, hatred, greed, and those tools get misused as to try to make people more powerful than they really are.
Yeah, so whenever we carry gun, somehow if we cannot control our emotion, it's easy for us to harm ourselves and others. Especially nowadays, right? Let's say if someone carry a gun and keep the gun while they were driving the car, and if someone cut them up, right, they may have more chance to shoot harder, and we know that. All right, so let's us move on to our discussion today. So yeah, the next one is the like livelihood. The next one, the right effort. In Buddhist view, yeah, the effort here is that the sporting keep unwholesome from arising, not always their effort to prevent. So let's say if we have not do any kind of bad karma, it's better not to do it. And if we have, if we raise some bad karma, or we raise unwholesome karma, we need to stop. We need to eliminate that. And if we have raised some kind of good karma, we need to do more. And if we have not done any kind of good karma, we need to start. So that's the whole idea of why effort here. Yeah, Anand, you like to say anything, Anand?
Yes, I just want to ask a question. If you know of or aware of a story back of Buddha when he were whether or not he has encountered a situation where in his life where he has to defend himself, but actually using force, or has he always talked people out of it, or using emotional intelligence or emotional karma in order to get out of a situation? Has he ever, or have we have any documentation or a story that talk about his, let's say we see someone being hurt or some weak person being raped, hurt, or something like that, that he would get involved in a situation that would involve force to stop being a peacemaker. But in order to be a peacemaker, you have to use some kind of force. Has there been any cases like that that you're aware of?
Yeah, actually, this story. Let's see here. Let me show you. There's one particular story that relates to a criminal. I don't know whether Sam or Miss Kristen know that or not. You know that story, Sam or Kristen? Can you tell?
Yeah,
You
you
tell
will be probably. Like the one where there's like some robbers who come and they're trying to rob Lord Buddha, and but whenever they get close to him, just like his presence of like peacefulness, like they stop what they're doing and they change their ways, basically become monks, I believe. right? Kirsten, is that the same story you're thinking of?
Yeah, and what's the one where they, oh, there's the fingers on the necklace?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the what they call the finger neck criminals. Yeah, let me share with you. This is the one that the famous story right here. The story Angulimala and the Buddha. So the story is that somehow this young man, he was told by his master that he need to chop up 1,000 fingers before he could be graduated from college during his lifetime. So he did that. So he went around to kill people to get fingers, and it's too many that he put them around his neck. And so when he got up to up to 999, so he has one more finger to have. That's mean one more life he need to kill. So somehow he have a thought that he want to kill his mom to chop up her finger. So Buddha contemplate that if he did that, he would go down to the hell straight, and that's why somehow he stepped out to stop this young man, these criminals. And so the Buddha, when he walked in front of this criminal, he walked slowly, but that criminal could not catch him. And so this criminal say, "Wow, please stop." So the Buddha turned around and say, "Wow, I stopped already. I stopped the killing already. You have not stopped yet. You need to stop now." So at that time, he recognized, and he put down his weapons and become a Buddhist. And later on, the Buddha allowed him to even become a Buddhist monk. And the king in the country sent the soldier to look for this criminal to capture, because the criminals kill so many people. But when the king went to see the Buddha, and he told about looking for that criminals, so Buddha said, "Well, if that criminal become Buddhist monk, what should you do?" And so the king say, "Well, I would pay respect on him, and would let him to work on his spiritual path." So the Buddha turned around and say, "Here, the monk next to me is that criminal that you were looking for, but he gave up his crimes. Now he become Buddhist monk." So the king is so admire of the Buddha. So basically, in his lifetime, come back to your question, in his lifetime, Buddha never use any kind of force physically. He always talk people out, especially this extreme case. And even he was assassinated by his cousin Devadatta, but he never retaliated back. So that's the Buddhist approach in the non-violent ways. Yeah, you follow, Anand?
Yes, Thầy. Thank you very much for the story.
Yeah, another story related to an Indian master. His name is, so basically he was outspoken monk, and a lot of people were jealous about him. So one day somehow when he walked around the forest, and one non-Buddhist guy came up and stopped him, and he told that guy, "You need to run away now, otherwise my student cannot handle this." So yes, that criminal ran away from the scene. But later on, his student um, mm, came to the scene and saw that he was stopped, and asked for the guy who killed him, who stopped him. So that's Zen monk say, "Well, you don't need to look for him. He killed my body, but he could not kill my mind. If you look for him and revenge on my behalf, you guys still like the same. You guys will be criminal like him." So in Buddhist view, we could not retaliate, or fight back, or I mean that in the way that other people have harmed us. we always try our best to be non-violent one, even someone harm us. Yeah, so that's the whole story. And there's many stories that relate to some Buddhist monk, the one that followed the Buddha's teaching during his lifetime. So one monk, he was hit by actually, let's put this way, one monk, he was accused by his fellow monk. His name is Sariputra. Miss Kason, you know that story?
Which one?
Sariputra. You know this story?
I know a lot of Sariputra stories, but I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
So yeah, so one of his fellow monk accused him wrongly. So this monk Sariputra say, well, if that's the case, even I didn't do anything wrong, I apologize. So forth. So that monk, the fellow monk, the one that accused Sariputra, recognize his mistake, and so that's why he repent in front of Buddha. So anyway, so in Buddhist view, we try our best to remain in non-violent ways, and especially you see Dalai Lama, right? He always advocates non-violence and compassion. Even his country is occupied by the Chinese communists, and they kill millions of Tibetan people. But the Dalai Lama never encourage his people to carry guns to fight back. But he always advocates that by using the path of non-violence and compassion, we will solve the problem in the long term. Yeah. So that's Buddhist stand for. Yeah. Anand, you follow, right? Anand?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. So
It's very admirable. It's very admirable. It's very difficult, extremely difficult. To have the ability to control in all situation where I do, like even bully, the whole concept of bully in high school and college and things like that. When you see a kid being bullied, it's difficult to reason sometimes, or I'm just thinking about in a realistic situation, how we're able to sit and reason with people when you see someone hurt someone, and you're not stepping in a physical way to kind of pull back and just reason sometimes. I just from I just kind of reflect on that myself.
yeah, so there's one story about a Tibetan monk. He was imprisoned in Tibet for more than 30 years. So later on, he escaped from Tibet to India. And so one time, people in Alaska invite him to go there to speak in front of a group of high school students. So some students ask him, what is the most thing that you fear when you were in the prison? What's the most fearful things that you have when you were in prison? So this Tibetan monk, he say, well, the most thing that I'm really concerned, really afraid about is that I could not control my emotion when the Chinese communist soldier torture me. So again, in Buddhist view, the one truly followed Buddha teaching would abide with the non-violent ones, non-violence approach. For this Tibetan monk, he concerned that he couldn't control his anger when he was tortured by Chinese soldier, and that's what he really concerned about. That's what he really afraid about, that he could not control his anger. But of course, for other people, they may say that, oh, I'm afraid that they may torture me more. I may have more pain and more suffering because they torture me. But for them, especially for the Buddhist monk in this case, he really concerned about he could not control his anger or emotion. It's not easy, right, Sam? Right?
The story you taught had me thinking about, the story in the sutra. I guess it's in more than one sutra, where the Buddha talks about how in a previous life, he was wrongfully accused by King Kalinga, who cut his whole body into pieces while he was alive, and the Buddha didn't even mind. He wasn't even mad at King Kalinga, because the Buddha was like so beyond like the concept of the self, even when he was not the Buddha yet in a past life. I'm thinking about that, like he wasn't mad at the king because he saw that the king, that there was no separation between him and the king. So how could he really be mad or want violence against him? He just kind of accepted it peacefully, is my understanding of the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like we discussed before, right? So we have the right to defend ourselves, right? To protect our family members, whoever we love, whenever intruders or criminals they try to harm us and our family members or our loved one. But we try our best to use the means of nonviolence to defense. And so many Buddhist people they ask me about this kind of situation too. So so Ivan, what do you think? So now Buddhist people could not carry gun. So what kind of techniques or instrument or whichever that they can protect themselves from the intruders, from the criminals if they break in the house? What do you think, Ivan?
I mean, from my understanding too, within Buddhism, there's a tradition of warrior monks and open-handed technique, staff technique. It's Taoism that goes into sword more.
Yeah.
And those techniques inherently, our responses are reactionary to a stimulus. Someone inputs and you respond. It is not your intent to harm, maim, or kill, but it's the reaction or response to their action. And I think those techniques bring balance to a violent encounter. I've trained a lot in bladed arts and martial arts and stuff, and I've sat down a lot with this on myself too, of if there is a violent encounter, do I pause and hesitate because of my morals, or my morals be damned and I step into the void? Because there is no moment of pause. You can't pause.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of just makes me think of that story you told about the Tibetan monk that got upset because of the anger. You know, if you've spent lifetimes uprooting selfishness, selfishness, and you really like have dedicated some strong effort and lifetime to uprooting anger. Those are the things that you really want, in Buddhist, you really want to protect your mind. It's those defilements that are going to keep you coming back and getting stuck here in the cycle anyways. So, with all that training, and you've dedicated that much time, it would be much worse to have someone reimplant that anger you've spent so long getting out of your life than it would be to actually take your entire life. Does that make any sense?
I understand where you're coming from, Kirsten, but also being steeped in stress inoculation and martial arts.
Yeah.
I can, and in a violent situation, will in somebody without anger.
Yeah, that's
no intention.
That's what I was thinking is a lot of the martial arts tradition that are influenced by Buddhism emphasize a lot of just acting out of calm instead of emotion.
Because the emotion brings about a physical response.
Yeah, it's not
stress, that whatever, you ridge it up and you pause.
It's not helpful. I see though, like I always hear the word self-defense. Honestly, I don't even really believe in a self as a Buddhist. So I wouldn't talk about self-defense, and I would try to be like the Buddha in the past life story, where he would rather just let somebody kill him than himself hurt anyone. But where I would be interested in defending somebody is if I was defending somebody else who couldn't defend themselves, like a kid or like my mom or somebody. Then I would use violence, and even if it meant that I had to take some amount of bad karma, I would do it to protect someone else. I would just try to not do it out of anger. I would do it out of trying to protect someone. And I would try to cause as little harm as possible. But I would also accept, even with the right intention, if you harm someone else, even if it's as little as possible, there will be karma from that. And I guess I would just have to accept it. It's something I thought.
Yeah. So George and Kaylee, so let's say if we don't know martial art, we don't know kung fu, we don't know how to do that type of short physical defense ourselves. So what type of instrument, techniques, whichever, that we can protect ourselves, our family members, our children, and others?
I would probably try and talk my way out of it, first of all.
Yeah.
If there's some situation, I would try and de-escalate it as much as I possibly could.
George, what do you
And
think?
then
Run.
It's very hard to think in a mind that doesn't know martial arts. I mean, strategically, there are things you can do about placement and things like that, but I mean, still, that comes from martial training. Like that, since I've done that my whole life, it's hard to separate out and think of things in a different context.
Yeah,
I don't really know any. I don't really know any martial arts. So this was a long time ago. It was 2008. I did talk myself out of a scary situation once, kind of like Kelly was talking about doing potentially. I had a guy. This is when I lived in Boston. I had a guy who tried to rob me. And I was like, come on, man, that money's to buy a present for my girlfriend. And it's her birthday. And he was like, okay, I'll let you keep the money. Because I connected with him on a human level. And yeah. So
yeah, and then what do you think? And then
It's a tough dilemma, it's difficult. A lot of people are saying, when you actually in a situation, how will you react to it? Non-violent, but you see a physical emotion that, especially when in the same talking, you see someone weak, inferior, being hurt. And for me, it's difficult to stop and just standing there and just reason without using some kind of, first I probably say reason, but then sometimes when in a physical situation, there's not much reason, and I cannot sit there and let someone hurt someone. So I would probably take the karma, reduce my karma, and go there and take the hit for that person, and then somehow say or help that person. So maybe my karma would be less reduced because I hurt someone, but then I hope that the opposite would come back and say, hey, I tried my best with good intention to help somebody, and hopefully if I do the right thing in the future, something good may come back. So I probably wait on that balance more, and do what is right with the right intentions without thinking about the word non-violence. Yeah, I don't think I probably do what is right more so than in my heart what is right to do in that situation. But then, for example, we're talking about, let's say I'm going to a camp and I'm responsible for a bunch of kids, and we walk into a forest, and I'm suddenly in that one room that they were taking a shower, there was a rattlesnake, and the rattlesnake ready to hurt some kid. What would I do? If I happen to have a stick, will I smack on the head of the snake and let it die? Or should I let it? I mean, in an impromptu situation, I cannot do anything at that point but to help save the kid from being hurt. So my first reaction probably do the right thing for the sake of the good of everyone. and take the hit on being harmful to another being. So that's a tough call. But if you deeply, I would say that, you know, but still, that's not a good thing to hurt someone. So but then I have to wait. You know, would you rather it bite, you know, 5 kids, or you just have one person sacrificing?
Yeah, thank you.
That's a tough one, though.
How about you, Jake? What do you think about this kind of situation?
Yeah, great discussion. I tend to I feel like I agree with like everyone's sentiment, in some way or form, but.
Way to take no time. You do help me with
But yeah, I think that there's, I don't know, I guess like maybe you don't always have to look at, you know, interfering in a violent situation and attacking, you know, a perpetrator in the sense of, you know, you're doing them harm necessarily, because that could maybe be doing them good, by stopping, you know, whatever kind of evil they're playing with or about the cause. So yeah, I don't know. I do like, I know a little bit about what Taoism, not, but just basics. And I think that judo, I think that Do is the Japanese word for Tao, maybe closely related. Okay, yeah. So kind of just going with things to trying without trying by not trying. I don't know, but something alike into like a sailboat. And I think that there's things that have to be put in place for a sailboat to sail, to do something in order to move. It has to be built. There has to be effort put into that. So I think that sometimes in order to, you know, maybe help things move in a better path, you do have to take some sort of action. Long way of saying, yeah, I think that sometimes it's good to interfere, with, you know,
Yeah.
that makes any sense.
Thank you. At least, Clarissa, what do you think?
Myself, Kelly, yeah, I would do what you did. I probably would just run. I would try to talk them out of it. First, I think about that a lot because I recently started doing therapy part-time, and I see clients on nights and weekends, and I'm alone by myself. So I've recently thought about that a lot, and on Bardstown Road. I don't know if you know where that is, but by myself and in the building by myself with them. So I thought more about what I would do if someone came in or if I got a client that was unruly or a passerby, and I would definitely try to talk them down to de-escalate the situation. Like you said, I'm used to that with working in jail a lot. I had to do that a lot. So I'm good at verbal de-escalation, which is a therapeutic technique. And then I'll just run because I really would get wrecked if someone tried to attack me. As far as interfering, if I had the time, I would ideally assess the situation, assess for safety, and then assess if there was someone who could assist me, especially if it was someone who was of a larger size, taller, or appeared stronger. I think I would look to that first. And then I would, if there was no one around, I would see how I can help while keeping myself safe, because then we all ended up in a bad situation. I don't think it would be ideal. So I would try the best I could to talk it down and then get support in interfering if I felt I was not capable. And then just go down the list of options. I think I would try to cause no harm, but I mean, it'd be situational, it'd be weapon if they had, if it didn't, it'd be size, comparison, and I would just do what I had to do.
Yeah, thank you. So you see, this is a picture of mine. We have the prayer. I think on April the 18th with many interfaith leaders, including the Catholic bishop, the priest, the pastor, and so forth at the Cathedral of Assumption, downtown Louisville. Because last month we have 2 children, right, in Louisville. That's really concerned about people, and we have in this prayer meeting at this church. The mayor, the Louisville mayor, were there too. So anyway, so the point I want to mention is that no matter we try our best to be non-violent, and of course to protect our house, our facility, especially our temple, for example. Yeah, we have a security camera. We can call 911 whenever it happen. Of course, in the case of emergency, sometimes it's not easy, but we try our best to use any means, any techniques, and the equipments, let's say security camera and so forth, to alert the authorities so that they can do their job. So
They fall into this. Right?
Work very well anyway. I really.
You know, well, I've unfortunately been gassed and it sure that drops me to my knees. I don't know.
I have spice tolerance.
Yeah, some people just discard.
Yeah.
It's more business.
yeah,
Yeah.
I put on myself once and I was like, man, if I was trying to save my life with this, it wouldn't even stop me, let alone this.
Dang it, I accidentally got it on myself and it dropped me like that.
yeah. So we have Buddha birthday celebration next Sunday. You know, right? And we're going to hire one security guy to walk around our temple so that he can help us. That's what we have last time when we have big meeting during the New Year celebration. Yeah, so I think that's more appropriate for us to hire them to help us out whenever we have this special event with many people coming. Anyway, so time is up. Yeah, so let's us stop here today, and